Welcome back. Today I just want to talk about Luke 11:9 through 11. So it goes like this. So I say to you, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks it will be opened. If a son asks for bread from any father among you, will he give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will he give him a serpent instead of a fish? This is a very deliberate example Jesus is giving because it really goes to the very heart of the difference between Jesus' approach to the people and Yahweh's approach to the people. He's contrasting his approach with Yahweh's when he brought the Jews through the wilderness. In fact, the particular question where he says, if one of your sons asks you for a fish, will you give him a snake? That imagery, it was selected very carefully because it's specifically in Numbers 11. So the manna, the bread from heaven, the first time that Yahweh provides it is in Exodus 16. Numbers 11 is where the people complain for the second time about being hungry and thirsty. And they reminisce on the good old days back in Egypt when they had, when they were able to eat their fill of a wide range of foods, and one of them being fish. It's specifically listed in that text in Numbers 11. We had all the fish we could eat. We had all the leeks, the onions, garlic, cucumbers, melon. Those are all listed there with fish. And just 10 chapters later, when they are upset because they're still hungry and they have no water, and they complain about the manna being worthless, which we've talked about that already, but we'll go into a little bit more here. That's when Yahweh sends snakes. He sends poisonous vipers to bite the people. That's the famous text that is known as the bronze serpent text, where Yahweh, at the instigation of Moses, who mediates for the people, has Moses put a bronze serpent on a pole and tells him to tell the people, if you gaze at this bronze serpent, you will be healed from your snake bite. So Jesus used his example about the fish and the snake very deliberately to show, look what kind of guy this Yahweh is. In John 6, when Jesus goes into his monologue about the manna and says teaches that he is the true bread from heaven, and says in verse 32, Moses did not give you the bread from heaven, but my Father gives you the true bread from heaven. He does enforce the interpretation there that physical food cannot provide what the Father can provide, which is eternal life or immortality. But it does go deeper than that. Because in that same chapter, John 6, is the famous miracle account of the feeding of the 5,000. And in that account, there are a couple of aspects to the story which are markedly opposite what you find in the Old Testament concerning the manna. In Exodus 16, we learn Yahweh only wants them to collect just enough for their need. Some had extra left over after gathering it up. But for the most part, they had what they needed to eat and no more. In fact, they were told not to have leftovers, not to leave anything until morning. And the text goes on to say that Moses was angry with those who did leave some until morning, because in the morning it became worm infested, and it stunk. And that same text also goes on to say that when the sun came out and got high enough in the sky, it melted the bread, it melted the manna. So Yahweh's supposed miracle in bringing the manna left much to be desired, because one would expect that if this were a divine miracle and if this were truly angels' food or some type of heavenly food, it wouldn't be spoiling so quickly, and it would be able to satisfy the people. In the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000 in John 6, there's a lot left over after the people have eaten their fill, and then he tells them to gather up what is left and to save it. Whereas with the manna text, they're told not to leave anything. Consume it, eat it all, make sure it's gone, because the rest will spoil. So they're not getting much in Exodus 16 from the manna. They're really just getting what it is that they really need, to kind of keep going. In the feeding of the 5,000, the people have more than their fill. They have more than enough. They're more than satisfied. And then secondly, they are gathering up what is left over. Whereas Yahweh doesn't want them to have leftovers, lest it go bad and become infested with worms. So again, Jesus is making a very clear contrast between himself and Yahweh. And I was going to go forward and talk a little bit more about another aspect of this, but I think it would make more sense for maybe the next video. So I think we'll stop with the contrast between the manna and the feeding of the 5,000 and go on to the next section of Luke 11. I may actually do a verse-by-verse breakdown of the Lord's Prayer there in Luke 11. So thanks for listening, and we will go ahead and move forward.